What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for Sports. So this has to be asked. It has to be asked because you saw what Giannis Antetokounmpo was able to do with the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, Giannis had, in my opinion, the greatest individual NBA Finals performance all around in the 75-year history of the NBA. 50 points, 14 rebounds, 5 block shots, playing on a high level on both the offensive and defensive ends of the floor. And when you take into account the poor games overall that Middleton and Holiday and others had, it was Giannis that was pretty much the sole reason. The only game that compares as far as both NBA Finals and closeout games and finals is Bob Pettit, who in 1958 had a 50-point, 19 rebound closeout game against Bill Russell's Boston Celtics in 1958, and that was also a game six. Um, Giannis, who is notoriously inconsistent at the foul line, I think hit 16 or 18 from the line, and a magnificent performance, efficient from the floor, all of that. But more importantly, Milwaukee won their second NBA championship. It was the first time they've been in the finals in 47 years, their first championship in 50 years. And Milwaukee, even though the mainstream media, act like, you know, they don't really care because they only talked about it for 1 or 2 days tops, and now they're already speculating about what the Lakers are going to do or what other teams are going to do, Golden State, what they're going to do. Meanwhile, last year the Lakers had uh, an uninterrupted, like damn near 2 week, championship hangover. It was every day. Does this finally make LeBron the GOAT? Does this championship make AD top 10 all time? Maybe top five. We'll discuss that the entire program on Inside the NBA. But Milwaukee brings back an argument that number one, you can win a championship without stacking the deck. And you think about the teams that have won championships without stacking the deck. The 94 Rockets, you know, the Detroit Pistons, the Bulls. I mean, I know some people said it was a super team, but the only major free agent signing they made that they had was Dennis Rodman. Everybody else was drafted. So that's not really a super team. Now, look, uh, I might sometimes refer to the Knicks as a super team, but they didn't conspire with each other. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have one or two or three superstars just say, "Hey, man, let's get together and let's dominate the league." It didn't happen like that. Players didn't have that type of power back then. This is something that really just started over the last 10 to 12 or 15 years or so. But I want to focus in particular on Kevin Durant. And this has to be asked: is he somewhat overrated by us? And I remember, and the reason why I say is because you look at his career and his Hall of Fame caliber, top notch. I think he's the greatest. To me, I think he's the greatest overall shooter ever. I know people give that nod to Curry. I think Curry is the greatest three-point shooter ever, but I think the greatest shooter ever is Kevin Durant. He's a career 49.4% shooter, 38% from three, 88% I think from the foul line. Just elite, uh, master level shooting. He's a 50, 40, 90 threat every year, but he scores at a very efficient rate. He's shot over 50% from the floor in the last 8 seasons. That's phenomenal. you know. And this is going back to 2013 when you can't really say it was the same league it was today. It was getting there, but it still wasn't quite the same. You know what I'm saying? But there's no defense, and the rules are totally slant toward offense. Um, and this is a guy that has led the NBA scoring for quite a few seasons. So my thing is this: he's a tremendous player, but do we overrate him a little bit because of that run he had with the Warriors, when he won 2 championships, 2 Finals MVPs? Now he did what he had to do; he got the job done. But should we look at it more like the Warriors helped him rather than he helped the Warriors? Because the Warriors did win championships before he got there. And you have to wonder, if it wasn't for injuries to Clay uh, the year before last and last year, if it wasn't injuries for Clay and Curry the year before last, and Draymond the year before last, you have to wonder where they would be without Durant. Now, they wouldn't be the same dominant club that they were, but if they almost made the playoffs this year, they came within a couple of points, a couple of possessions of making the playoffs this year without Klay Thompson. You have to factor and figure that if Klay Thompson was playing, this team would have been in the playoffs. And considering how competitive the playoffs were, they could have theoretically made it to the finals. It's possible. So you have to wonder, can can Kevin Durant really lead a team to a championship without stacking the deck? And this year he stacked the deck and it didn't work out for him. Injuries derailed that Nets team. Joe Harris forgot how to shoot a basketball in that series against the Bucks, and Kevin Durant did what he could. Don't get me wrong, Kevin Durant stepped up and he tried. He tried everything he could, but it wasn't enough. And I do remember how the media tried to turn the tables and make it seem like the Bucks were the super team and the Nets were at disadvantage because they didn't have the super squad. No, actually, it was. I look at it like this: without Harden and Kyrie Irving, the playing field had leveled, and when the playing field had leveled, they were beatable. And you can also make this argument: if you watch the Brooklyn Nets this year, anybody that watched them, they look better with Harden and Kyrie Irving on the floor than the other combination, whether it was Harden or Durant or Harden and or Durant and Irving. They always look better with James Harden on the floor and some other combination, but especially, I hate to say it, Harden and Irving. Now I'm not saying that they're better players than he is, but there's certain things that they can do that Kevin Durant's not very good at. Kevin Durant's not going to run your offense very well. He's not a facilitator on that level. He's improved in his playmaking ability, but his main thing is scoring the basketball. He's improved a lot in his playmaking since his OKC days, especially earlier on. He's improved a lot in his rebounding and his defense. Uh, you could argue that maybe his defense has taken a small step back from since the Achilles injury, but he's still effective. But he's not, what, he's not a defensive perennial defensive player of the year award winner. Basically, what I'm trying to say, and he's not a guy like James Harden. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this: whenever he's in a situation where the deck isn't stacked, more often than not, he hasn't gotten it done. people forget about the 3-1 blown lead against the Warriors in 2016, the Western Conference Finals. A lot of people like to do this thing where they like to blame it all on Westbrook. It was Westbrook's fault. Nah, I watched those games, and Westbrook did a lot of dumb shit. Don't get me wrong, he did. Trying to force the issue, trying to play hero ball. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that Durant at times was playing passive. I remember him turning the ball over a lot. I remember him, talking about Durant, I remember him losing the ball to point guards and, uh, you know, getting the ball stripped from him from Andre Iguodala. I remember him settling for weird ass set shot looking threes that went wide right. I just remember him choking. I remember a lot. I remember 12 for 31 performances. I remember like a 7 for 22 game or something like that. I just remember a lot of bad shooting from Kevin Durant and a lot of choking in the last 3 games. But somehow people always want to blame it on Westbrook. And I think that started because when Durant left and went to the Warriors, then you could easily say it was Russell Westbrook's fault. And I'm gonna tell you how wins and losses can change people's perception. As recently as 2014, if you were to ask most basketball fans who was the better player, Steph Curry or Russell Westbrook, you would have got a resounding majority of them saying that it was Russell Westbrook. Why? Because he'd already been to an NBA Finals. People are infatuated with numbers. Russ was putting up triple doubles. Russ was averaging 27, 28 points a game around that time. Uh, so people are finicky already. Look, I just spent 3 years trying to convince people that Giannis Antetokounmpo was the goods, right? And I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, right? Oh man, you out your damn mind, man. Now all of a sudden, man, Giannis is that dude. Man, Giannis is. I've been telling you that. Look, man, Rick Barry, in his second year in the NBA, made it to an NBA Finals against the 67 76ers, one of the greatest teams ever. He went to the ABA for a while, came back to the NBA, and then in 1975 won a championship. But what's so notable about that championship? It was, I know it's not, it's hard to think about it now because we don't know a lot of people don't know the teams and the situations. But 1975 championship is one of the great upsets ever. They beat a 60-win Bullets team, which had a prime Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes. Now they did win the championship 3 years later, but they were getting a little older by then, and they had a lot of injuries that year. That Bullets team won 60 games, and 60 wins in the 1970s, as even-handed as the NBA was back then, is like winning 70 games now. And they swept that team. They swept them, and that was not a super team by any stretch of the imagination. They had the best player on that team was probably a rookie Jamal Wilkes, Jeff Mullins. That was not a super team, and they beat that team in a 4-0 sweep. You know, 2004 Pistons. Even though Karl Malone was not himself, even though Shaq wasn't quite himself, still the prevailing wisdom was that the Lakers were going to beat them in 4 or 5. It did turn out to be a 5-game series, but it was the other way around. The Pistons won in 5, and if it wasn't for Kobe Bryant 3 at the buzzer, it might have been a sweep. So you don't have to have a super team. The Houston Rockets, when they won titles in 94, 95, they didn't have a super team. The Bulls weren't a super team. I know some people, excuse me, some people will call them a super team because, yeah, they've had 4 Hall of Famers on that team, but there was no collusion involved. All of these players were drafted. And Tony was not an NBA Hall of Famer. He's a European Hall of Famer. He was very dominant over there, but in NBA, he had a nice career, but not Hall of Fame worthy. But over in Europe, he put up Hall of Fame numbers. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame internationally. But in 1998, Game 6 against Utah, Scottie Pippen he re-aggravated his back, and that's kind of almost the beginning of the end of Scottie's. Well, pretty much that was the established end of Scottie's prime as a player. Um, Pretty much Scottie was just a decoy out there. Dennis Rodman was mentally checked out as a player, not really producing at the level that you expected to produce. And Jordan kind of pretty much carried that team on the offensive end and defensive end. Matter of fact, Giannis's performance in Game 6 reminded me a lot of Jordan's performance in 1998. The only reason why I give Giannis the nod is because um, the Bucks haven't been shit in so long, and Giannis was so efficient. Jordan shot 15 and 35, but then again, we're talking about a 35-year-old player. Got key steals on the defensive end from Karl Malone. It kind of reminded me of that performance. But anyway, the point is, you don't have to stack the deck. You don't have to stack the deck. And you wonder if Kevin Durant had stayed with OKC, would they have won championships? I don't know. And like I said, I've said this time and time again. When the Bucks won the championship, it was even if you weren't a Bucks fan, unless you're a supreme hater, you had to feel joy for the city of Milwaukee, for they haven't won anything specifically in the city of Milwaukee since the Bucks won the title 50 years ago. All they got is a Bucks championship, and I believe a championship with the Milwaukee Braves in 1958, and they don't even really consider that a championship with the Milwaukee anymore because the Braves aren't even there anymore. They left sometime in the '60s for Atlanta. So really, all they got is the Bucks. Meanwhile, when Durant was winning titles with the Warriors, I mean, it was like okay, yeah, all right, this was expected. Okay, all right. So like the sun rising in the morning and setting in the evening. It was as exciting as that. There's something that is expected. It happens every fucking day. Already I'm seeing something about an assistant coach said that this USA team, that the leader is Draymond Green and not Kevin Durant. That Kevin Durant's just not a guy that is a natural leader. So look, I'm not saying that to knock him, but it just goes to show you that he's a great individual player, but is he the type of dude that can lead troops that aren't overly stacked in his favor to a title? And I like Kevin Durant, man. He's a fiery dude. You know what I'm saying? He don't take shit from people. I'm not questioning his heart. But I am starting to wonder if we just are putting too much with this guy. Like, is he a type of guy that can consistently lead a team that is built around him, maybe just one star and some role players? Can he lead that team to multiple championships? Or does he need a super squad around him of 4 or 5 Hall of Famers? So let me guys let's tell me what you guys think.